KL Publications presents I Am, the journey of India Simmons. Once upon a time in a small, lively house, 3-year-old India Simmons sat in the kitchen surrounded by pots and pans, her tiny hands gripping a wooden spoon, banging enthusiastically on the lids, creating a wild, clangy symphony that filled the room. To anyone else, it might have seemed like noise, but to India, it was music, a grand concert that only she could hear. Her parents, watching from the doorway, couldn't help but smile. India was always creating, always imagining, always feeling a little different from everyone else. "India," her mother would say, chuckling, "you've got music in your soul, baby." But India's life wasn't always harmonious. As she grew older, she began to feel the weight of the world pressing down on her. School wasn't as fun as the kitchen concerts, and kids could be cruel. India was different, quiet, thoughtful, and always daydreaming about far-off places. She didn't fit in neatly into the groups of other kids, and that made her feel like she didn't belong. The more she tried to fit in, the more she felt out of place. One day, when India was about 7, she came home from school with tears in her eyes. The neighborhood kids had called her weird for spending recess alone staring up at the clouds. She stormed into the kitchen, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Why can't I just be normal?" she cried, slamming her fist down into the kitchen counter. Her grandmother, who always seemed to be in the right place at the right time, shuffled over with a wise, knowing smile. "Normal, sweetheart, is just a setting on the washing machine." India snuffled, looking up at her with tears. "But everyone else fits in except me." Her grandmother knelt beside her, holding India's hand in her own wrinkled ones. "Fitting in doesn't mean belonging, India. Your journey isn't about being like everyone else. It's about finding out who you are." India didn't fully understand those words at the time, but they stayed with her. As the years passed, she faced more challenges. In middle school, the awkwardness grew stronger. India was still that creative, imaginative girl, but now she had braces and glasses that magnified her eyes like a bug's. Every time she looked in a mirror, she saw someone who didn't quite measure up to the girls in the magazines or the popular kids at school. And then came high school, where India truly began to wrestle with her identity. She desperately wanted to be liked, to be a part of the crowd, to fit into the mold that seemed to define everyone else's life. So she tried. She tried everything from fashion makeovers to picking up hobbies that didn't suit her, like joining the basketball team, despite having the coordination of a newborn giraffe. The more she forced herself to change, the more disconnected she felt from who she really was. But no matter how hard she tried, there was always that little voice inside her head, the same voice that guided her during her childhood pots and pan concerts, whispering, "You're more than this. Who are you trying to be?" India didn't have the answer yet, not until college, when everything seemed to just fall apart. In her junior year, she met Glenn, the charming guy with the perfect smile and perfect grades. He also DJ'd on the side for extra money. His name was DJ Talent. He was so cute. She thought he was the answer to all her problems, her ticket to finally feeling whole. They dated, fell in love, and got married after graduation. Everything seemed like it was going according to the fairy tale script until it wasn't. Life after college wasn't the easy road she had imagined. India became a clinical nurse, a job she loved but found overwhelming at times. And soon after, she became the mother of 2 beautiful boys, Glenn and Grayson. Motherhood was another chapter filled with its own trials. The sleepless nights with her beloved special needs son, the worry, the fear that she wasn't doing enough, that she wasn't enough. Glenn, despite his charm, wasn't always the perfect husband. Their marriage hit rough patches. Fights over small things turned into fights over big things. And India found herself spiraling into doubt. Who was she now? A wife, a mother? Was that all? She loved her boys more than anything, but the weight of it all felt crushing sometimes. And that old feeling of not fitting in, of not being good enough started creeping back into her heart. One night, after a particularly hard day at work and a fight with Glenn over the laundry, yes, the laundry, India sat in the kitchen, thinking of the same kitchen where decades ago she had made music with pots and pans. Her boys were asleep and the house was quiet. She sat at the table staring at her reflection in the window, feeling utterly lost. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. Your journey isn't about being like everyone else. It's about finding out who you are. And then it hit her. The journey she had always been on, all those years of trying to be someone else, to fit into everyone else's expectations, it had been leading her back to herself, the person she had always been, the person she had been enough from the very beginning. India laughed to herself, a small but heartfelt chuckle that soon grew into a full-blown laughter. She had spent so much of her time searching for acceptance when all she needed to do was accept herself. Her journey hadn't been about finding something external. It had been about discovering the power that had always been inside of her. She realized then what Neville Goddard had been trying to teach in the power of awareness. Her reality had always been shaped by her consciousness, her thoughts, her beliefs, her assumptions. She had been trying to change her world from the outside when all along the power had been within her. I am. Two simple words that held infinite potential. She didn't need to fit in with everyone else. She didn't need to be perfect. She just needed to be herself. With that newfound awareness, India felt lighter, as if the weight of the world had been lifted off her shoulders. She knew there would still be challenges. Life wasn't suddenly going to become a walk in the park, but now she understood that she could face anything because she knew who she was. The next morning, India woke up with a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. As she prepared breakfast for her boys, she glanced at the pots and pans on the stove and smiled. Maybe later, she would teach Glenn and Grayson how to create a kitchen concert of their own. She had found her way home to herself, and she finally was free. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe.